The universe is a great storehouse, filled with endless supply, waiting only for man's recognition of its abundance. Too often, however, we treat money as though it were master, when in truth, it is but a faithful servant. Money obeys the law of mind, just as a seed obeys the law of growth. When we speak with authority, when we command with faith, money responds, for it is energy, and energy always follows the direction of consciousness. Many live as though money were elusive, scarce, and uncertain, forgetting that wealth is not something to be chased, but something to be called forth. To order your money to multiply is not to grasp or to hoard, but to speak the word of increase, to plant thoughts of plenty, and to water them with expectation. Every coin in your hand, every note in your purse, is a seed that can be commanded to grow, for it carries the vibration of expansion when aligned with fearless faith. The mistake most souls make is to believe that money comes from people, jobs, or chance. But money, like all good, comes from the infinite and is distributed through channels both seen and unseen. To order your money is to stand in the consciousness of dominion, declaring that what you have shall not diminish but expand, not scatter but circulate, not vanish but return multiplied. Wealth responds to obedience. Just as you instruct a child, just as you direct a servant, so must you instruct your money. Tell it where to go, what to do, how to grow. For if you do not order it, disorder will claim it. Many cry that their money slips away, that it leaves them as quickly as it comes. Why? Because they have never spoken the word of authority over it. They have never commanded it with certainty to bless, to increase, to return sevenfold. When one gives money without fear, it multiplies. When one spends with joy, it returns enriched. When one blesses every dollar that passes through their hands, that dollar becomes magnetized to bring friends along its way. But when one spends with dread, hoards with mistrust, or speaks of lack, the law is hindered, and the harvest is delayed. To order your money is to claim mastery over appearances. It is to look at the small coin and say, "You are a seed, and by the law of increase, you must return to me in harvest." It is to look at the bill due and say, "You are already paid by the infinite supply, and as you go forth, more shall return." It is to declare with unwavering conviction that every dollar you touch carries the mark of multiplication, and every seed you sow comes back with abundance, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. For money is obedient, and it hears the voice of faith. Speak to it, command it, bless it, and it must multiply. Money is a servant, not a master. Command it with authority. The trouble of the world has always been that people bow before what was made to bow before them. They fear money, worship money, chase money, and worry over money, instead of realizing that money is nothing more than a tool, a faithful worker in the great household of life. To mistake the servant for the master is to step into bondage, for whatever you fear will control you, and whatever you bow to becomes your ruler. The soul that places money above itself has surrendered its divine inheritance, and has allowed the shadow of lack to govern its affairs. But the awakened mind knows the truth: money has no will of its own. It has no character, no intention, no purpose except what you impress upon it. It is clay in the potter's hands, waiting for your word of command, waiting to shape itself into whatever form you decree. If a king were to mistake his servant for his ruler, his kingdom would fall into chaos. The servant would not know how to lead, for leadership was never his task. Likewise, when man bows to money, when he trembles over his bank account or grows anxious about bills, he has inverted the order of divine law. The servant now dictates the master, and the household falls into disorder. But when man takes his rightful place, when he speaks to money as one speaks to a faithful assistant, clear, calm, and with certainty, then order is restored, and money begins to obey. It is not the possession of great sums that makes one master over money. Even the one with little, when he knows the law, may command it with the same authority as the wealthy. For it is not the size of the purse, but the strength of the word that determines dominion. You may have one coin in your pocket, yet if you speak to it with the certainty of increase, If you treat it as a servant whose duty is to multiply, that coin will open doors of abundance. To doubt, to complain, to declare that you have only one coin is to dismiss the servant and refuse its work. But to bless it, to say, "You are the beginning of much, and by the law of supply you will draw your kind," is to set the law of multiplication into motion. The great mistake lies in imagining money as master. A master commands, directs, controls, and sets the terms. How often do people allow money to set their terms? They say, "I cannot go there, I cannot do this, I cannot have that, for I have not the money." They bow before money's illusion of power, chaining their dreams to what they believe they can afford. But money was never meant to decide what you may or may not do. It is the obedient servant of your vision, the carrier of your intention, the messenger of your faith. The true order of life is to declare first what you desire, to speak your word of command, and then to let money, as servant, arrange itself to fulfill it. When you begin to see money as servant, you no longer tremble at its comings and goings. Just as you would not fear if a servant left the room, for you know he will return when called, you cease to fear when money flows out. You know it is but fulfilling your command, circulating, moving, preparing, and it must come back multiplied. Fear says, if it leaves, it may never return. Faith says, go forth and bring your increase, for you cannot disobey. The master gives the order. The servant carries it out. That is divine law. Money takes on the character you give it. Treat it as tyrant and it will dominate you. Treat it as fleeting and it will slip away. Treat it as evil, and it will seem to bring trouble. But treat it as obedient, faithful, and increasing, and it will carry those qualities in your life. The subconscious mind holds all money beliefs, and those beliefs act as silent orders. If you say without words, "Money is hard to keep," then your servant obeys and makes itself hard to keep. If you declare, "Money runs away from me," then your servant follows that order. But when you awaken and say with conviction, "Money serves me, it obeys me, it comes when I call and multiplies under my command," the law begins to shift, and you find that money has changed its behavior, not because it changed in essence, but because your word reshaped its assignment. Authority over money does not come from force or desperation, but from calm certainty. A true master does not shout, does not beg, does not argue with his servant. He gives the order once, with clarity, and it is done. In the same manner, you must speak to your money. Give it a purpose. Assign it a task. Tell it to circulate with blessing, to return multiplied, to bring harmony rather than worry. Every bill in your wallet, every coin in your jar, every number in your account is waiting for instruction. It does not think for itself. It does not rebel, it does not wander by chance. It responds to your word, and if your word is weak, double-minded, or fearful, then its obedience will reflect that confusion. But when your word is clear, unwavering, and filled with faith, then money lines itself up with your decree. There are those who live in dread of spending, holding tightly to every coin, thinking they are masters because they cling. Yet they are servants to their fear, not masters of their money. True mastery is not hoarding, for hoarding is mistrust in the law of supply. The one who knows money as servant can release it joyfully, knowing it returns. He can spend with freedom, not recklessness, for he knows the servant does not vanish into nothing, but fulfills the order of multiplication. Every time he pays, he blesses the money. As you go forth, you grow and return. And in due time, return it does, in ways often unforeseen. For the servant is resourceful, and the channels of supply are endless. To command money with authority is not arrogance, but alignment with divine law. It is to know your rightful place as heir of abundance, child of the infinite, endowed with dominion over all lesser things. Money is not higher than you, nor equal to you. It is beneath you not in worth, but in order, for it was made to serve. As long as you place it above, you will remain enslaved by lack. As soon as you place it below, as it belongs, you will walk in freedom, for then the servant obeys the master. Every coin and bill is a seed. Bless it, and it must return multiplied. When we look upon money merely as paper and metal, we miss the mystery of its true nature. It is not lifeless, it is not meaningless, it is energy condensed into form, waiting for the command of consciousness to determine what it shall become. Just as the tiniest seed contains within it the pattern of the towering tree, so does every coin and every note carry within it the possibility of increase beyond measure. But just as a seed must be planted, nourished, and blessed with expectation in order to grow, so must money be treated as a seed of prosperity. To hold it with fear is to choke it. To clutch it with mistrust is to bury it in stony ground. To scatter it with complaint is to throw it into barren soil. But to bless it, to speak over it with faith and gratitude, is to set in motion the law of multiplication. There are those who see only the smallness of their possession. They look at a single coin and say, "What can this do? It is nothing." And by their word of nothingness, they strip it of its power. But another looks at the same coin and says, "Here is the seed of a harvest, here is the beginning of plenty, here is the sign of infinite supply." That coin, though identical in substance, carries a different fate, for it has been blessed. The law is impartial. It multiplies what is spoken over it. When one calls it little, it remains little. When one calls it seed, it becomes harvest. The farmer does not despise the small seed, nor does he look upon it as worthless. He knows that the greatness of the tree is hidden in its tiny form. So too must we look upon money. A small coin, when planted with blessing, may draw unto itself streams of increase. A dollar spoken over with faith may gather many dollars in its company. The harvest is not in the seed's size, but in the soil of thought into which it is cast. Consciousness is the soil, words are the rain, expectation is the sunshine. With these every seed of money must grow. Blessing is the act that charges the seed with life. To bless is to declare good, to affirm increase, to acknowledge the presence of divine supply flowing through the form of money. Many spend with dread, whispering unconsciously, "This is gone, this is lost, this is too little," and the money obeys, vanishing quickly, returning not. But one who spends with blessing speaks, "As you go, you multiply, as you leave, you return, as you circulate, you grow." That word of blessing clings to the money, magnetizing it, sending it forth as seed into the unseen fields of supply, where it must bear fruit and come again. Each bill, each coin, each transfer of number is a messenger, and the message it carries depends upon what you give it. Send it forth with fear, and it brings back lack. Send it forth with indifference, and it brings back confusion. Send it forth with blessing, and it brings back abundance. The act of blessing is not mere ritual but law. Just as water causes the seed to sprout, so does blessing cause money to increase. The seed cannot help but respond to the elements given it, and money cannot help but respond to the consciousness that surrounds it. Consider how often people curse their money without knowing it. They say, "It is never enough. It slips away too fast. I can't keep it." Such words are like frost upon the soil, killing the sprout before it rises. Then they wonder why increase never comes. But let the same people turn their words, blessing every coin that touches their hand. You are plenty. You bring friends with you. You grow and return increased. Soon the atmosphere changes, the soil of thought is warmed, and the seed of money begins to sprout in ways they had not imagined. Unexpected channels open, opportunities arise, doors swing wide, and the little coin proves itself to have been mighty seed all along. To treat money as seed is to release it from the burden of being an idol. You do not cling to seed, you do not worship seed, you do not fear losing seed, you plant it, you bless it, you let it go with joy, knowing it must return in harvest. And the more you release, the greater the harvest you may expect. The farmer who sows sparingly reaps sparingly, but he who sows generously reaps in abundance. Yet the farmer does not scatter recklessly, he sows with purpose, with care, with blessing. So must we with money. Every act of giving, every purchase, every offering is an act of sowing. Let it be done with the consciousness of multiplication, and the return is certain. There is no limit to the harvest of blessed money, for the soil of supply is infinite. A seed may draw from the earth nutrients unseen to the eye. A coin blessed with faith may draw from channels unseen to the mind. The harvest may not return by the same path through which the seed left. The farmer plants in one field and may reap in another, yet the law is sure. Money spent in one place may return through unexpected work, a gift, an opportunity, or a door that suddenly opens. But return it must, for the word of blessing has gone forth, and the law cannot be broken. Those who learn to bless their money live in a continual state of expectancy. They do not fear the dwindling purse or the thin wallet, for they know each dollar is seed, and every seed carries life. They do not despise small beginnings, for they see the oak in the acorn, the field in the grain, the wealth in the coin. Their eyes are fixed not on what appears, but on what is certain by law, that every blessed seed must sprout, every spoken word must take form, every release must bring return. To bless your money is to align with the order of the universe. All of nature operates by blessing. The sun blesses the earth with light, the rain blesses it with water, the soil blesses the seed with nourishment. Each gives, and by giving, multiplies life. So must we bless our money, seeing it not as mere paper, but as living seed, infused with the power of increase, carrying within it the silent promise of more to come. Every coin is a tree in potential, every bill a field of harvest, every act of blessing the rain that calls it forth. Supply comes from the infinite, not from people or circumstances. Most of the world has been trained to believe that money flows from jobs, from employers, from clients, from trade, from government, from banks. Because of this belief, men and women live chained to appearances, bound by the idea that their good is limited to certain channels. They look upon their employer as the source of their income, their business as the source of their provision, or their customers as the source of their wealth. When these channels waver, they tremble. When these channels dry, they despair. Yet all the while, they have forgotten the truth that every channel is only an instrument, and the true supply is infinite, unchanging, and unfailing. To depend upon people or circumstances is to mistake the faucet for the water. The faucet may turn, the pipes may break, the form may shift, but the water itself comes from a deeper source that never fails. The infinite supply is like a boundless ocean, vast, inexhaustible, and ever-flowing. When one dips a cup into the ocean, he does not diminish it. When one fills a bucket, he does not strain it. When one launches a ship upon it, he cannot exhaust it. So it is with divine supply. Each man may draw according to his faith, and yet the source remains unchanged. The error lies in imagining that the cup or the bucket is the ocean, that the employer or the customer is the supply itself. People and circumstances are but vessels, channels through which the infinite expresses itself for a time. To tie your trust to the vessel is to place your security upon sand. To tie your trust to the ocean itself is to stand upon rock. When one recognizes the infinite as supply, fear loses its hold. No longer does he quake when one channel closes, for he knows another must open. No longer does he cling desperately to a single source, for he knows supply is not bound to that form. The infinite is creative and resourceful. It has countless ways of delivering its abundance. If one door shuts, another swings wide. If one channel dries, another begins to flow. The consciousness that sees the infinite as source lives in peace, for it knows its good is never cut off, never delayed, never truly threatened. The only block is in belief, for if you insist that your good comes from one place, you tie the hands of the law. When you release and declare, "My supply comes from the infinite and channels are countless," the law goes to work, arranging ways unseen, opening paths unknown, bringing good in manners unexpected. Consider the one who fears the loss of a job. He says, "If this ends, I will have nothing." He has set up that job as his God, believing his life depends upon it. But the awakened mind says, "This job is one channel of supply. Should it close, another must open, for the infinite is my true source." With that consciousness, he does not tremble, and by his calm trust, he magnetizes new opportunities. Fear shuts the door, faith opens it. Fear clings to the single channel. Faith releases it and makes room for more. Supply flows through people but does not come from people. People are instruments, not sources. To depend on them is to live in disappointment, for no person can carry the weight of being your source. If you look to man, you will find him faltering. If you look to circumstance, you will find it changing. But when you look to the infinite, you find constancy, abundance, and certainty. Money, gifts, opportunities, and ideas may come through people, but they originate in the great storehouse of spirit. To see this truth is to live free of resentment, free of jealousy, free of fear. No man can take from you what belongs to you by divine law. No circumstance can rob you of your provision. What is yours must reach you, for the infinite knows no failure. Many spend their lives chasing after people, trying to secure favor, struggling to force opportunities, striving to manipulate circumstances. They labor as though their destiny depended upon human approval. Yet such striving often ends in weariness, for they are digging in the sand, instead of drawing from the wellspring. The soul that trusts in the infinite walks differently. He blesses channels but does not worship them. He uses them but does not cling to them. He thanks those through whom good flows but never confuses them with the source itself. If one channel ceases, he blesses it, and turns his eyes upward, knowing another is already prepared. The infinite supply is spiritual, not material. What you see in your hand is the outer form. What supports it is unseen. Just as roots under the ground feed the tree, so does invisible supply feed visible money. When you water the root, the tree flourishes. When you ignore the root, the tree withers. To focus only on visible circumstances is to stare at the leaves while neglecting the roots. The wise turn their attention to the unseen, affirming the presence of infinite supply, trusting it to manifest through proper channels, and blessing whatever form appears, knowing more is always at hand. When one learns to live in this consciousness, lack begins to dissolve. He no longer thinks in terms of scarcity, for how can there be scarcity in an ocean without shore? He no longer binds himself to certain people, for how can the infinite be limited to one avenue? He no longer despairs when appearances seem bleak, for he knows appearances are shadows and supply is substance. He speaks to himself with assurance. My good comes not from man nor from condition, but from the infinite that never fails. I do not limit my supply. I do not bind it to a single source. I stand open, and the law of abundance fulfills itself in perfect ways. The greatest freedom one can know is to be released from dependence on circumstances. To live untied to the fluctuation of wages, to the ups and downs of business, to the rise and fall of markets, to the favor or disfavor of others, is to live in mastery. The tides of life may shift, but the ocean remains. The channels may alter, but the source is the same. This consciousness builds unshakable peace, for even when the purse appears empty, the soul knows the supply is infinite and ready to flow at the word of faith. Fear scatters money, faith magnetizes and multiplies it. Fear is the great thief that robs people of wealth, peace, and security, yet it has no real power of its own except what the mind gives it. Fear makes money restless. It pushes it away, drives it out, scatters it in confusion. When one acts, speaks, or thinks under fear, money reflects that vibration. It slips quickly from the hands of the fearful, finding no atmosphere in which to remain. Fear says, I must hold tightly, for I may lose it. But in that very holding, the energy of money feels repelled, and circumstances arise where it leaks away. Fear says, there is not enough. And so money obeys, arranging conditions of insufficiency. Fear says, it is too hard to come by. And so the flow slows, the channels clog, the ways close. Fear continually proves itself because it has been given the order to do so. Faith, on the other hand, is the magnet of wealth. Faith is calm, unhurried, certain, unwavering. Faith says, supply is endless and I am in tune with it. Faith releases money with joy, and money returns with companions. Faith blesses money in the act of spending, and it comes back multiplied. Faith declares, I always have what I need, and the law fulfills that word. Where fear scatters, faith gathers. Where fear diminishes, faith increases. Where fear binds, faith releases. Money being energy, responds to the tone of the mind that handles it, and it knows no resistance to the power of faith. Consider how often people live in a cycle of fear with money. They dread bills, and bills multiply. They fear unemployment, and opportunities slip away. They fear loss, and losses come. Fear is a powerful projector, sending out pictures that life cannot help but reflect. A man who continually fears lack creates the very conditions he dreads, not because fate is cruel, but because his fear is law in action. He is scattering his money in unseen ways before it even leaves his pocket, for the vibration of fear attracts shortage. But the man who lives in faith can walk calmly, even through appearances of lack, knowing they are shadows that dissolve under the light of belief. He speaks, "I am always provided for. My money is safe and multiplying, I live in plenty." And slowly but surely, life rearranges itself to mirror that conviction. Fear makes money slip through the fingers like water. The fearful man may receive wages, gifts, or profit, but it drains away quickly, scattered by unforeseen expenses, losses, or unwise choices born of anxiety. He cannot hold it, for fear itself is repellent. But the faithful man, though his income be small, finds his money lasting, stretching, and increasing. He spends with confidence, gives with gladness, and always seems to have more. It is not circumstance that makes the difference but consciousness. Fear vibrates with scattering, faith vibrates with multiplication. The fearful spender releases money reluctantly, as though prying it from his own grasp. He says, "I cannot afford this. This will be the end of me. Once it is gone forever." Such words scatter the money even as it leaves, ensuring that it does not return. But the faithful spender sends his money forth as a sower sends seed. He blesses it, declares it multiplied, and expects it to return with increase. His consciousness draws back the money, enriched, just as the soil returns 100-fold to the sower who plants in faith. Fear is also the root of hoarding. Many cling to money with desperate fists, thinking they are saving, when in truth they are blocking the flow. To hoard in fear is to declare silently, "There will not be enough tomorrow." That declaration plants seeds of lack, and life mirrors it. Hoarded money becomes stagnant, loses its multiplying power, and often finds ways to escape, through accidents, debts, or unexpected drains. Faith, however, saves with confidence, not with fear. Faith says, "This is reserved for growth, for expansion, for wise purpose." And that very vibration allows the savings to attract more. Fear hoards because it distrusts the law. Faith saves because it trusts the law. Every act with money carries the imprint of fear or faith. When one pays a bill in fear, muttering about the loss, the money departs under the shadow of lack. When one pays the same bill in faith, blessing it as seed for greater circulation, the money departs charged with increase. Fear makes every coin diminish in power. Faith makes every coin rise in strength. Fear ties money to limitation. Faith sets money free to multiply. The magnetic quality of faith does not depend on how much one possesses. A man with little who walks in faith may attract wealth beyond expectation, while a man with riches who trembles in fear may find them scattered like dust in the wind. Faith is not about size but about certainty. It calls things that are not as though they were. It looks at the empty purse and sees it filled. It looks at the small coin and sees a fortune. It looks at the bill due and declares it already paid. In that unwavering certainty, life aligns itself, and conditions obey. Fear, being negative faith, works in the same way but toward destruction. It sees bills and calls for more. It sees an empty purse and declares it permanent. It looks at debt and whispers it can never be paid. Life, hearing the vibration of fear, says, "So it is." The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between faith and fear, it simply takes orders. Faith orders increase, fear orders loss. The law obeys whichever voice is given authority. To walk in faith with money is to know that supply cannot fail. It is to move calmly through spending, saving, and giving, blessing each step with expectation of multiplication. It is to release fear as an illusion, a shadow that has no substance except what belief gives it. It is to speak words of assurance over every transaction. "This money blesses me. blesses others and returns multiplied. I am always provided for. Nothing is ever lost in the great law of circulation. Such words carry power, for the vibration of faith magnetizes wealth from every side. Money flows where it is trusted. It clings where it is blessed. It grows where it is loved without fear. It departs where it is cursed, doubted, and distrusted. Fear scatters because fear denies the abundance of the infinite. Faith multiplies because faith aligns with the truth of endless supply. When a man lives in faith, he no longer looks anxiously at circumstances, no longer trembles at the size of his bank account, no longer despairs at appearances. He knows that faith itself is wealth, for it is the magnet that draws abundance into visible form. Give, spend, and circulate with joy. What you release returns increased. The law of circulation is the law of life, for nothing in the universe is stagnant. The rivers flow, the tides move, the seasons turn, the breath goes in and comes out. So it is with money. It was never meant to be clutched in fear or buried in mistrust, for money that is withheld without joy soon grows heavy and stagnant. It loses its power to attract, just as water trapped without movement grows stale. But when money is given with gladness, spent with confidence, and circulated with a spirit of blessing, it becomes a living stream, always returning, always refreshing, always multiplying. The fearful heart spends with dread, as though every coin that leaves the hand is lost forever. That vibration of loss attaches itself to the money, and so it behaves as commanded, disappearing into nothingness, never to return. But the joyful heart spends with a sense of increase, saying, "This money blesses me and blesses others. As I release it, it returns multiplied." Such money goes forth with wings, charged with blessing, and it must circle back enriched. The one who spends with joy lives in a different atmosphere from the one who spends with fear. He is not depleted by giving, he is replenished. He is not weakened by circulation, he is strengthened. For the act of joyful circulation aligns with the eternal flow of the infinite, which is always giving, always creating, always increasing. Every transaction is an opportunity to plant seeds. When you give, whether in kindness, in business, or in obligation, you are scattering seeds into the soil of the unseen. If you plant them with complaint, they bear little fruit. If you plant them with resentment, the soil grows barren. But if you plant them with joy, watering them with gratitude, they must rise in abundance. A bill paid in anger drains you. The same bill paid with joy becomes a seed of prosperity. A gift given with hesitation diminishes. A gift given with gladness expands. Circulation is not about the outward act but about the spirit behind it, and the spirit of joy is magnetic to increase. There are those who hold back their giving, saying, "I must keep what I have, for there is not enough." They live in fear of tomorrow, and so their money withers. They may clutch it tightly, but it slips away, for hoarded money has no life. It is like seed kept in a jar, it never multiplies. But when that same seed is sown into the soil, it dies to its form and rises multiplied. So with money when released with joy, it does not die but transforms, taking on new channels, drawing increase from unseen ways, returning with friends. Joyful circulation transforms even the smallest amount. A single dollar given with gladness carries a vibration far stronger than 100 given in reluctance. The law does not measure by size but by spirit. The one who gives little with joy may reap more than the one who gives much with fear. For it is not the quantity but the quality of energy that multiplies. The joyful giver aligns with abundance, and abundance must respond. The fearful giver aligns with lack, and lack must reflect. Every act of circulation sets in motion a vibration that returns in kind. Spending, too, can be an act of joy rather than dread. Many grumble as they spend, cursing the price, resenting the exchange. They do not realize they are poisoning the money as it leaves, sending it forth with the stamp of loss. But the one who spends with joy blesses the merchant, blesses the service, blesses the exchange, and thus sends his money forth, as a messenger of good. That money will not vanish but will circle back, for it carries the word of increase. To spend joyfully is to recognize that circulation is not loss but exchange, not depletion but renewal. Just as you breathe out to breathe in again, so you spend to receive again. The exhalation makes room for the inhalation, and so joyful spending makes room for new inflow. Even saving, when done with joy, becomes circulation. To save in fear is to hoard, to clutch, to block the flow. But to save with joy is to assign purpose, to prepare for expansion, to honor the future. Such savings are not stagnant but alive, carrying the vibration of faith, drawing to themselves multiplication. The attitude determines whether money grows or withers. Circulation does not mean careless scattering but joyful movement, whether in giving, in spending, or in setting aside for growth. The law is impartial and precise. Whatever spirit attaches to the release of money determines its return. Release it in fear, and it returns in loss. Release it in anger, and it returns in struggle. Release it in doubt, and it delays. Release it in joy, and it hastens back multiplied. Money is not lost when it is spent with blessing. It is invested into the stream of circulation, and the stream always flows back. The ocean does not lose water when a wave goes out, for another wave must come in. The universe does not diminish when you give, for more must come to replace what was released. To circulate joyfully is to trust the infinite. It is to believe that supply is endless, that giving does not deplete but enriches, that spending does not diminish but multiplies. It is to know that you cannot outgive the source, for the source is boundless. The fearful man says, "If I give, I will have less." The faithful man says, "If I give, I open the door to more." And so it is done unto each according to his belief. The fearful remain in scarcity, the joyful walk in increase. Every act of circulation is a statement of faith. To give with joy is to declare, "I live in abundance, and abundance returns to me." To spend with joy is to say, "This exchange blesses me and multiplies for me." To save with joy is to affirm, "This grows and expands, always attracting more." Such declarations, when made with sincerity and expectation, charge the money with power. It becomes a seed carrying the imprint of joy, and the soil of life cannot resist bringing forth the harvest. The universe itself circulates endlessly. Stars give light without fear of exhaustion. Trees release fruit without dread of depletion. Rivers pour into oceans without worry of running dry. All of nature operates under the law of circulation, and man, when he aligns with it, finds himself in harmony with the same abundance. Money is but one stream in this great circulation. When handled with joy, it becomes a faithful stream, flowing out and back again, never ending, always increasing.